Welcome back to the Wisdom from the Cradle series. Today I am joined by Genevieve, chanter, midwife, wife and new mother, and daughter of a priest. Genevieve comes from a family deeply rooted in the Orthodox faith and has kindly agreed to share some of her wisdom and experiences with us today. I'd like to talk to you about Tom now, if that's okay. Okay. As a cradle-Orthodox married to a convert, what have you learned from your husband's fresh perspective on the faith?
I guess that cradle-Orthodox aren't the only ones who can, eat, sleep, and breathe at the church. I guess. I don't know. And I think that sounds kind of presumptuous. Maybe. I don't know. But I guess he has so fully and entirely adopted the church as his way of life. He's done that, and I love it, and it calls me to do the same in new ways. Yeah.
So he's been pretty successful on shedding the baggage of his old life, so to speak.
I think so. It took time. I'm sure it's still happening, and as he continues to live life, I'm sure it'll come up in new ways. But overall, yes. Yes, I would say he's worked very hard to do that.
How has his journey shaped your marriage and spiritual life together? So instead of you're doing this on your own kind of thing, your prayers, your time, now it's like, okay, now I'm sharing it with somebody else entirely. And maybe someone who grew up in an entirely different confession even.
I feel like just living with him and having the witness of his life constantly before my eyes, it tethers me to the church. Like, his connection to the church is also a tether for me because I'm connected to him, so deeply, that I guess his love for the church makes me love it in new ways. I would say that we still pray a lot individually, just because of our schedules, I guess I had visions when we got married of us always praying together. And at one point I was talking to my spiritual father about it in confession. I was actually thought I was confessing, we really pray on our own. And he said, my wife and I pray on our own, as long as you're praying, and praying for each other, it doesn't necessarily have to be together. But I do hope that as we get further on into our family life and we're together, more, especially in the evenings as a family, that we'll be able to pray together as a family. We usually, if we're praying together, it's in the evenings because, he gets up at ridiculous o'clock in the morning, and I'm just not quite that dedicated, I guess, to communal prayer to rise that early.
Yeah. I don't think
to greet the dawn.
Yeah. Your husband's preparing to join the diaconate. How has that calling shaped your home and your vision of family life?
When the idea was first brought up to us, we both said no. I walked out of the meeting. I said, nope, absolutely not. I think because of my experience already being a clergy family, far different from being a priest's wife, which is a uniquely burdened role, I think. But still, being a part of the clergy family growing up, I feel like it feels like a different relationship with the parish. And being a priest's wife is something I never hope to have to be. I don't think that that's the direction of my life, and I pray that it's not, because I don't think I have the grace for it. Anyway, so that's kind of what I was afraid of, I guess. But, and my husband just didn't feel, I guess he didn't feel like he was worthy, you know? And it'll also, you know, it'll kind of upset, well, it'll make our life a bit more difficult, you know, because he's already working extreme hours and starting his company, which takes a lot of after hours work. And now we have a new baby, and so family time is in precious short supply. And now to be in school for 3 years, you know, is going to make that difficult as well. So that's a sacrifice. But that wasn't why we were both inclined against it. But I think separately, we both came to the, I guess, where our mind is that if you've been asked to serve the church, kind of like, who are you to say no?
Yeah.
I guess. I think it can even be a form of pride in some cases to make that judgment about yourself, even that you're not worthy. You know? To like think yourself so specially unworthy that it passes judgment on whoever's asked you. Anyway, and I really do feel like it's that simple. We've been asked to serve the church in this way, and I don't think that, I don't feel that we'd be blessed to say no.
Yeah.
I think that obviously challenges, sure, will come, but blessings too for saying yes. And I was intimidated at the idea of being, you know, I'm still the priest's daughter, but I'm an adult now and have my own place in the church, but I don't quite know what that is. I feel like I have a lot of uncertainty about what my role is in the parish. And I think that this will actually help, you know. I will be offering up my husband to serve, you know. A deacon is literally the servant. And I think that will be good. Yeah, I think that, in my decision making about it, I was thinking a lot about myself, selfishly. But I think that's partly because it feels like such an obvious thing for me, for my husband. Like, I see him in that role. Yes, he's a deacon. Yes, that seems a very appropriate role for my husband. I didn't have any questions or any doubts about him serving in that role.
Right.
I guess. I just, feels like a given. Yes, this is the right thing for him.
Considering that your mother's been married to a priest for a while now, is there any advice that she's given you? Like as a, you know, your role as a wife and a mother now, on what's going to be kind of expected of you, and then maybe how you are supposed to handle it in regards to being the wife of a clergyman?
It's too much to unpack, really. I mean, even the, the evolution of her own role within the parish, and her relationship with the parishioners, I've seen firsthand, you know, and I've seen the grace with which she's walked through a gauntlet. It truly is something I don't think I could ever aspire to emulate so gracefully. But I'm so thankful for the example. Yeah, you know, I've seen the lessons she's learned. I think if any of the griefs or pains that she's experienced trickle down to being a deacon's wife, I think it'll be to a much, much smaller degree. And I hope that in my small way, I can be led by her.
looking ahead, how do you hope to grow together as husband and wife and serving the church?
I pray that we'll come to truly not just call it a joy and a privilege, but truly feel it as a joy and a privilege and the greatest gift of our life. I think at the start of it, we're rather intimidated, by the amount of work that's ahead of us, what that will look like for our family, because we're just beginning that as well. Yeah, but that's my prayer and my hope that that we will see it for the gift that it is.
Yeah.
And something that's life-giving and not life-draining, which I think it will be if we let it. I think it is somewhat up to us. I think to make it beautiful.
Kind of want to wrap this up. I mean, there's still a good number of questions, but this part of the wrap up is like your opinions on the recent waves of converts, especially during COVID and after, and any advice you might have to offer. I've done this in the past 2 interviews as well, as you know. So, as a cradle-Orthodox, what have you observed in the lives of converts, both their strengths and struggles?
I think that in recent years, which is also, I guess I've gotten to know converts better over the recent years than maybe I had before, just because I was a young adult, experiencing it and, growing close with the converts. I may not have known the others so personally. In the years before, I guess, like the pandemic wave. I think what I see, maybe as a struggle, something that I've seen sometimes is converts coming into the church because of an ideology or, a political leaning that they think is reflected in the church and in the teachings of the church. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's constructive. And church doesn't fit within anything like that. And so they bring with them the assumption that everybody in the church must be of this political leaning, or this is the moral political opinion to hold.
Okay.
And a strength that I see, and there are far more strengths, I think, than struggles, in the recent ways of converts, is a true faithfulness. I think that, over my lifetime, what I've seen of converts is that sometimes it can be difficult for them to adjust to the rhythm of the church, because most people come into the church as adults and they have an established life and an established rhythm and cycle to their life. And the church calls us into hers.
Yeah.
And that can be hard to adjust to. The fasts, the feasts, the not just going to church on Sundays, with the weekday services throughout the week, the extra services during Lent and the other fasts, the feasts that fall on weekdays. It's such a joy to see the church full on those occasions.
Yeah.
And it's full of converts.
Speaking of, experience, do you see differences between how cradle-Orthodox and converts experience the church?
I think so. And there are different types of converts and different types of cradles. And we have our weaknesses. I think across the entire Orthodox Church in the United States, I think that cradle-Orthodox Christians tend to fall away in their youth. I think that particularly in ethnic parishes where to be Orthodox really means to be Greek or to be Arab. You know, it's tied up in their link to their culture, rather than it being their faith. And so they grow up, you know, not learning much, or not understanding the liturgy even, because it's in a language that they maybe understand but don't speak, or don't speak very well, or only hear from their grandmother. And so they grow up and understandably have nothing to cling to.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that's a somewhat typical pattern. Sorry, what was your question? Can't remember what I'm saying.
How the cradle and converts experience church itself.
Yeah. Anyway, and then, God willing, this cradle-Orthodox Christian who's fallen away will come back and rediscover the faith for themselves. And yeah, and then the converts can, as I said before, struggle with adopting the rhythm, you know, and also struggle with the idea that just the sheer overwhelming amount of knowledge there is to gain about the church, and you know, and which church fathers to read, and what if they have conflicting things to say with one another, and who do I trust, and how far do I obey my spiritual father? And online, I think online is the greatest pitfall of the convert. Yeah, I think there's very little to be gained from online orthodoxy. I mean, okay, I say that, but then also it's led so many people to the church.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have mixed feelings, but I have more negative feelings, I think, about orthodoxy online.
In my experience, you know, especially because of COVID, like the majority, like I don't want to say majority, but obviously because COVID restricted a lot of people, orthodoxy had a major boost because of online presence.
Yeah,
But
it did.
The problem with that as well is there was no real restriction on content. And so that's why you get people who, you know, maybe they say orthodoxy and communism work hand in hand. And actually, you know, they're complementary to each other. Or on the other side, in regards to a certain other ideology from the 40s. But then at the same time, you know, you get one, in my personal opinion, one of the greatest teachers, even though he would hate for me to say this. The majority of his content is online. His name is Father Cosmas down in Australia. His YouTube channel, Orthodox Talks, I mean, they're very thorough and very in-depth lectures that, you know, range from 2 to 5 hours long, about the lives of the saints, or about the consequences of unforgiveness, and, you know, life after death, you know, near-death experiences. Like, he covers so many topics. The man was basically my catechizer, and I've never met him. You know, it's just because his YouTube channel happened to exist. And you know, and so people give flack to a certain number of online Orthodox creators. And yeah, you know, we can't deny that they have had an impact, you know, in some manner very positive, in another manner very negative. And I guess it really just comes down to personal discernment on what's beneficial and what isn't. So I'll like for example, in this, anybody listening, and I have no qualms against Jay Dyer. Some of his theological talks are very, very good, but people really love the entertainment of watching him debate. And so they think that they have to become debate bros to be Orthodox. And so that turns into debating people at your local parish and causing a whole bunch of strife. So I don't really, personally, I don't feel the need to listen to Jay Dyer that much, because I have priests that I trust that I can listen to. And he even says it, I'm not a spiritual father, don't take spiritual advice from me. I just go through the patristics and I teach the historical side of the Orthodox faith and the philosophical side of things. But that's not for everybody, and I don't think that's an issue. So I think really it comes down to, obviously, the more experienced you are, the more discernment you may have in regards to who you listen to. But just because they're online and they claim to be Orthodox doesn't mean that they're Orthodox and that you should take it as the gospel truth.
Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't say that it's overwhelmingly negative. There is an incredible benefit to the access to Orthodox content that we have. And that's great. There's so much that I wouldn't be exposed to because I'm not reading this stuff, if I didn't come across it, or if, like Adam didn't share it online. I really do benefit from that stuff. That's true. And like you said, there's so many priests talking and homilies that get shared now and live streams of the services. That's true. That is all, something that I'm definitely thankful for and definitely see the benefit in. I don't know if, I don't think we can rely on personal discernment.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't think that it should be up to us entirely. I mean, obviously, it's good to be in tune with your conscience, and if your conscience is directing you that some content is, better or worse for you, then you should absolutely listen to that. But I think that the guidance of our priests is ultimately going to be better for us than our own feeble attempts at making decisions for ourselves.
Yeah, no, of course. I guess part of it also, I see some of these online creators as being like a kind of like a foot in, but like once you're in the church, once you're actively going to the services, that's what your main focus should be on.
Yeah, totally.
If you have to choose between, listening to a 2-hour live stream or going to a evening service, obviously your evening service should be your main priority.
Please.
So
yeah. But and that's another thing, the exposure, I mean, Orthodoxy is still tiny in the US. Yeah. I can't believe even how small it is, because of how much more it has entered into the cultural consciousness than it was before. I guess since around, 2020, or maybe it was starting to happen before that. It's much more, so many more people have been exposed to Orthodoxy, even though we're still so tiny because of its online presence. Yeah, so that is another awesome thing.
If you could speak directly to a convert listening in right now, what words would you want to leave with them?
I remember something my mother said. She was chrismated in her 20s. The night before her chrismation, she was speaking to her spiritual father, who was her godfather also, who chrismated her. And she was kind of freaking out a little. She was afraid. She thought she may not be ready to be chrismated because she said, I don't know how I feel about, like, for example, maybe the Theotokos or praying to the saints, common things that converts stumble over. She said, I'm not sure that I still have questions. I still have questions. I don't know how I feel about a few things. And he said to her, do you trust that the church has the answer? And she said, yes, I do. And he said, that's good enough for me. And I think that's really compelling, for what I imagine the experience of a convert to be, which, obviously I don't know for myself, but there is always a lot to learn. You'll likely always have questions. And I guess you don't have to come to a perfect understanding and be able to clearly defend everything that the church teaches. If you are at the point where you can rely on the church, you can trust the church. You know that she has the answers. Then I think you'll be okay. You know, the church can't fit into your head.
Yeah.
You know, you have to fit into it. Into her.
Have you ever heard this saying, cradle-Orthodox have patience and wisdom, but converts have zeal and knowledge?
From you.
Yeah? Oh, my bad. I did not repeat it myself. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's fairly accurate?
I don't feel that I really have patience or wisdom, I guess. But yeah, I like that. I do. I like that. It appeals to the strengths of us both. And I've definitely been enriched and strengthened by the zeal and knowledge in my convert friends.
So how do you suggest converts gain the patience and wisdom side of things?
Listen more than you talk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a hard one. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, right?
For me, yeah. We come across this almost, new, very foreign feeling faith. This like unfelt fire just like engulfs us from the inside, and we just want to shout about it from the rooftops, but we're told we're not supposed to do that. We want to tell everybody we can, but we're also warned, like, hey, they might not accept it, and then you might stumble, you might get angry, you might cause them to lose interest because of your reaction, so on and so forth. And so it's, it's really true when, when they say, well, if you ask God to give you patience, he's going to give you struggles to make you be patient through. And so it's like I feel like, in my own experience and people I know, trying to gain that patience is something, especially here and especially in the modern world, we're really not used to, because we're so instant gratification, built now, or become so prone to be. So we want to be in the altar, like, especially men, some of us men were like, we want to be in the altar like tomorrow. And it's like, dude, this is your second liturgy. It's like slowly roll. And it's like, we want to be a deacon next year. And it's like, some people, they think they want to be a deacon and it takes them 10 years to get there, man. Like,
yeah.
Do you think cradles need to try to put in some more work about maybe gaining a little more zeal or a little more knowledge? Because some of these converts that come in, they know all this, like Saint Patristics this. And
yes. Yeah. Gosh, it's embarrassing. And it's, yeah, absolutely. I think that we so easily fall into apathy. I think we can be so apathetic about our faith and take it for granted. Yeah, I think that can be one of our biggest pitfalls. And that's why God allows us to be blessed with converts. I mean, for the furtherance of the church, of course, and hopefully all of our mutual salvation. But yeah, to constantly enervate us. Yeah, and to put us to shame, rightly so. A little bit. I think it can be healthily shameful, to realize how little you know about the church.
Looking back across everything we've talked about, your early life, chanting, midwifery, marriage and motherhood, and now your observations on converts, what ties it all together for you?
To some degree, these are all things that I didn't expect to be a part of my life. I never felt like I should be at the chanter's stand. Ever wanted to be. I didn't know that I was going to be a midwife. It wasn't where I thought my life was headed for quite a while. And the deepest desire of my heart was always to be a mother, but it almost at some points in my life, it felt too good to be true. Like I want this so much, therefore I probably can't have it. And also there was a time when I thought that I shouldn't have children because I should, go save the world instead. There's so much suffering in the world. I didn't see. I almost felt like it would be too much joy, I guess, for me. I'd be hoarding the joy, to have been given such a beautiful life, and then to be given what I saw as the deepest joy, just to be a mother.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect any of these facets of my life. Yeah. All I can conclude is God must love me.
Glory to God. Thank you for your time and the wisdom you've shared with us. Well, I know you don't want to claim it as such, but experiences. There are a number of us converts who do appreciate what cradles have to share with us, which is the whole point of this project. Your stories and reflections remind us that the life of the church is not something abstract. It's lived out in the home, in the parish, and in the everyday joys and struggles of Christian life. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarani.
As we close, I hope what has been shared here encourages you all to see orthodoxy as something living and personal. Whether you grew up in the church or if you came to it later, God meets us where we are and calls us deeper. The beauty of our faith isn't only in the services or traditions, but in the way it shapes our daily lives, in birth and family, in prayer and joy, and even in struggle. If you are a convert, don't be afraid to take your time and steadily grow. As St. Justine Popovich says, orthodoxy is the true home for every man. A convert does not find something foreign, but rather his own soul's native land. So even though orthodoxy may be new to us, and being obedient to the church's guidelines is strange at first, if we can accept that our ego is our main obstacle to conquer, we can rise above every struggle. And if you are a cradle, please be patient with us, whether we are hot-headed zealots or slow to learn. And don't take for granted the treasure you've been given. As St. Paisios the Athenite says, those who have been raised Orthodox from birth should not take this as a small thing. They must guard this inheritance with gratitude, lest it be lost. All of us together make up the body of Christ, and all of us have something to offer. May God bless you and strengthen you as you continue on the path. Until next time, stay steadfast, stay humble, and thank you for joining us.